My name is William H. I'm 36 years old. I'm from the Dayton area. However, I was born in Yuma, Arizona. Uh, uh, so I was born and then immediately adopted. And then at the age of 4, I was adopted again. So I had 3 sets of parents by the time I was 4 years old. My second set of adopted parents ended up being the parents that raised me. Um, my mother is retired Air Force. My father's a painter drywaller. Um, my childhood wasn't the best childhood. I was the black sheep of the family, obviously. Knew I was adopted at the age of 4. I could remember my final adoption, and I was a very hyperactive child. Um, I failed kindergarten, in fact, and I had to repeat kindergarten mainly because I wasn't diagnosed yet with ADHD, but that was soon to come. By the time I was in first grade, my parents were had to come into the school and have a meeting with the school, and were basically told that I needed to be medicated. My dad was for it, my mother was against it. Um, the school was all for it too. So my mom went ahead and did what the school said, and I went and seen the doctor, and they put me on Ritalin. I remember my first time taking Ritalin. I for a week solid, I would take my medicine and run underneath my bed and hide, and I'd put a blanket over my head, and I'd tell my parents I can't go to school. Um, this went on for like a week straight, and then I kind of leveled out, and the medicine seemed to work. Um, I wasn't no longer getting in trouble in school, running around the hallways. Uh, the teachers were satisfied, and my parents were too, so to speak. Um, my adopted mother is an alcoholic as well as my adopted father. Um, my dad was either at work or at the bar. Um, their marriage wasn't going very well in my early life. Um, at the age of 7.5, my adopted brother was born. Um, that changed the game quite a bit. My my adopted brother had a babysitter on base at Wright Pat, and then of course I went to school. Um, I had to have a babysitter before school and after school because of how early my mother would leave for work, and then how late she would get home in the evenings from work. Of course, my father would uh, work very long hours, and then the hours that he wasn't at work, he was at the bar. Their marriage was basically failing. I didn't know it at that age, and that was mainly the reason why my father would stay in the bars. Um, uh, fast forward a little bit to age 9. Um, my my parents' marriage was coming to a it was coming to an end. My father would no longer really come home at all. Uh, and when he did come home, they were constantly fighting. My mom complained about him spending more time in the bars or at work than spending time with his family. And I remember one night my father had came in and was totally wasted, and we had a German Shepherd for our family dog, and a very intelligent dog. And I woke up to my dog actually attacking my dad. My dad was so drunk he was urinating in my brother's playpen all over his toys. That's how intoxicated he was. He didn't realize he was home. Thought he was in the bathroom peeing in the toilet, and he's peeing all over my little brother's toys. This was kind of traumatizing to me because when they fought, they would argue and call each other names, and no physical altercations, but certainly verbal. You know. Um, so I think it bothered me more than what I realized. I started acting up at school again. Um, Teacher would tell me to do something, I'd tell him I'm not going to do it. Uh, I would get detentions and Saturday schools, and so my mother's way of disciplining me would be grounding me to a table. Um, However, I was an outside kind of kid. I didn't like being inside. I didn't like video games. I didn't like TV. Nothing your average kid did. I was all about either sports or I had a dirt bike. I had a dirt bike. I got my first dirt bike when I was 5 years old. So that was my outlet in life, was ride my dirt bike, or I had a basketball goal in our driveway, or I had neighbor kids. We'd play football, in the yard, or I would play with the dog in the yard. And my mom knew that by grounding me indoors to a table where I wasn't allowed to do anything besides sit at the table, there was no TV, there was no nothing. She seemed to think that that would correct my behavior. Um, and it only made matters worse. When my parents did get a divorce, I was 10 years old, and my mom would constantly talk bad about my dad. Oh, your dad's nothing but a drug addict, and he's an alcoholic, and he's always at the bar, and he didn't love us, and yada yada yada. Instead of driving me away from my father, that actually drove me to my father. And then finally, at the age of 12, I had had enough of my mom's strictness, and then also to her just totally degrading my father. So I made a decision to go live with my father at the age of 12. In the state of Ohio, it's legal. So my dad said, "Yeah, you want to live with me? I'll file it in court, and we'll take care of it." And before you know it, I'm living with my dad. My dad at this point had met a new woman into his life. Great woman, love her to death. Um, and he remarried. Things were going good. My dad had his own painting company. His drinking slacked off a little bit. His partying slacked off a little bit. And dad kind of became kind of a family man, so to speak. However, I moving to a new place. I moved from a southern suburb town to a kind of northern suburb town outside of here in Dayton and Beaver Creek. Um, Kind of an school district. Uh, I didn't have much, so I didn't fit in a whole great deal. Um, I I attached to kids in the neighborhood that were older than me. Um, we had BMX bikes, and we would always get on our BMX bikes and we'd ride to Delco in Kettering, and we would hit the BMX tracks. And that's when I first got introduced to marijuana, and then also too I got introduced to alcohol. In fact, I remember one of the first times I ever got drunk, I decided that I was pissed off at my bike at the BMX track. I couldn't hit some doubles there like all the other kids. So I took my bike and I threw it off a bridge. I'm not so sure that that bridge still exists at Delco, but it did at one point. I tossed my bike off a bridge into a creek, and it bent the front forks and handlebars. And I had to walk home because I made that decision. So I was kind of pissed off, upset about that. So I went into Kroger's right around the corner from Delco, and I went into the liquor aisle, and I decided to buy me some vodka, some cheap pop vodka. I decided to steal me a bottle of it. So I stole it, and I started walking down the road right there on Dorothy Lane in Kettering, you know, tipping a bottle, and I got pretty wasted that day. My friends caught up to me later on that night. One of them had actually went in the creek, pulled my bike out, and fixed it for the most part. It was like, "Hey man, here's your bike back. You know what happened to you today?" And I told him, I was like, "Well, I can't ride like you guys," and it really upset me, So you know, I got drunk on alcohol instead. And then I so the woman that my mom ended up remarrying, um, uh, has a big family, a large family. And at the time, we were all living in the apartments. It's called Stonebridge, which is now where the it's right next to where the Greens is in Beaver Creek. And we ended up getting evicted out of that apartment. But before that happened, um, she has they would they would end up being my step cousins. They were all living with us, so it'd be my stepmom's nieces and nephews. They were living with us, and that's when I got introduced to marijuana and methamphetamines. The first time I smoked pot, I didn't like it. I puked. The second time I smoked it, I got so high I ate everything in the refrigerator. I was like, hey, this is cool. I can smoke this shit and eat all day long. And my dad will never say nothing because he smokes pot too. Like I know he's not gonna bitch about that. Um, and then I tried methamphetamines, and I was 13 when I tried meth, and I absolutely was hooked from the first hit. However, with me being ADHD and me being on Ritalin, and then by this time in my life, Ritalin wasn't really doing right for me, so they did actually do away with the Ritalin and put me on Adderall. Um, and I was a pretty smart child, so my mind thought, well, I can smoke this meth shit, and it'd be like taking my Adderall, and I can sell my Adderall pills at school, and then buy hell of this other shit called meth, and I've got it made. You know, that's just how that's just where my mind went instantly with narcotics. And so some time went on. At the at Later on that year when I was 13, we moved to another big house in Beaver Creek. Uh, Same school district. Didn't have to change schools, thank God. Went to Ankeny Junior High in Beaver Creek, and my my dad was real abusive to me. When I would do something wrong, it started off with a wooden paddle, and then it ended up with this. Um, so he had this wooden paddle, and he it was big wood paddle. It had my name on it. It said William's best friend with some holes through it. And he'd wear it back, tell me I had to pull my pants down, and he'd bare butt spank me, And one time the paddle broke, the handle on the paddle broke, and by this time I've been hit by the thing so many times, like I was pretty much I gotten used to the pain of it, so I laughed at him because the handle broke. I never should have laughed at him because then he grabbed me, and my adopted dad's quite a bit bigger than I am. He's 6'4", 260 pounds. I've always been a little guy, so very intimidated of him. And then he's my father too. I was always raised, you respect your mother and father no matter what. So he grabbed me up, and he drew his fist back, and he hit me with his fist like a grown man, and it broke my nose, it blackened my eyes. Um, One way or another, I wound up at the Kettering Behavioral Health for Children out in Kettering, and the doctor was like, "Hey, we want you to tell us what happened, blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Well, I fell down the stairs. We live in a tri-level house," which we did. We really did live in a tri-level house, but I didn't fall down the stairs. Is how I got my nose broken, my eyes busted, and the doctor knew I was full of shit, basically. So they hauled my parents in for a drug screen because my toxicology came back with meth, marijuana, Adderall, all kinds of crazy shit in my bloodstream. And the doctors are like, "How in the hell? You're only 13 years old and you got all this shit in your system and your parents don't know about it." Like, yeah, there's something going on in your household. So they did a home visit. Children's Services did, and made them do a drug test, and of course they failed. And I wound up in a group home in Greene County for 3 years of my life, and I'll never forget it. This children's services caseworker picked me up in Kettering. I said, "Where are we going?" They said, "Well, you're committed to the Greene County Children's Services. Your property, Greene County Children's Services." I said, "Well, where am I going? I'm supposed to be going to foster care, right?" They're like, "No, you're going to a group home." It's a home for bad kids. I was like, whoa, hold on a minute here. I'm not a bad kid, you know. And I got there and it was crazy. You go to school, you come home, and you're in this like big house. You're in this house with 10 other kids that are always fighting and running away and getting caught doing drugs. And I told them, I said, look, you're gonna kick me out of here because I'm not gonna listen to none of you. You're not my parents. I'm not gonna listen to you, flat out. So I lived there until I was 16. Um, and at this point, the I've been to juvenile detention center so many times in Greene County. They didn't want me. They're like, we don't want him. He's a constant runaway. He doesn't do anything else wrong, but he won't stay put. You know. So my dad at this point, they weren't. Greene County said they would never get custody of him back because he had drugs in his system. My adopted mom was my only option. So she basically told the judge, "Yeah, I'll take custody of him." So I sat in jail for, man, like it seemed forever, but it was really like 3 or 4 months. And then my adopted mom took me back to her house. So back to her house I go, back to Springboro City School District, and there I didn't fit in at all. All these kids are rich. They make fun of kids that don't have there. If you don't have money there and you're not wearing name brand clothes, you're getting made fun of. Flat out. That's just how that school district is. So I put up with a lot of shit like that. Plus, I was a kid that you know I didn't mind to fight. If you look at me the wrong way or you make fun of me, I'll fight you. You know. So I lived with her for a while, and then my dad and his wife, my mom, who I call mom, they actually moved from Beaver Creek to Dayton, back to Montgomery County. And I found that out. So I'm like, bet. Like, I know Montgomery County will get dad. I know Montgomery County will let my dad have custody of me. So I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, I can't take her shit no more. He's like, all right, I'll talk to the judge here in Montgomery County, see what we can't do about it. Boom, one thing after another. I'm living back here in Dayton. I'm happy as hell. I'm home. Back to hanging out with my friends. Back to getting high. Think things are good, but they wasn't good because my dad at this point, he quit beating on me, quit calling me names, all that shit. I kept getting in trouble in school. By this point, I was kicked out of Belmont High School, sent to a school over here on the west side for problem children. It's kind of like a military oriented school. I got caught smoking weed in the bathroom. I never went back to school, so Dayton Public just expelled me out of the school district. So I was like, cool, this is awesome. I don't have to go to school. This is I'm back living with dad. I don't have to go to school. I can get high. I can, And then my dad was like, all right, I got to step in and kind of be a father to you. He said, since you're kicked out of school, you're gonna work. You're gonna get a job now and work. Since you don't want an education, you're gonna work. So I began to paint houses with my father. Worst decision in my life I probably could have ever made, because to this day, if my father was alive, um, he would he died owing me a lot of money. Let's just put it that way. Which I'd rather have my father than the money. Anyway, so fast forward a little bit. When I was 21, uh, is when shit started getting really bad. Um, I was your average 21. Your average person turning 21. Who at 21 doesn't want to experience the bar life, experience the drink, being able to go up to the bar and buy drinks legally? I certainly did, and I certainly did do just that. Um, However, I got my first DUI, I got my second DUI. I like to drink and drive and take naps while I'm driving, is what I call it, and wake up and my car is in a tree or a ditch or I'm upside down. Um, Now, while all this is going on, I've had many close calls in my life with vehicles, and I've walked away without any serious injury. So, um, I was raised, my early childhood. My adopted mom made us go to church on Sundays. So that's about the only thing that I liked that she did in my life, was made me go to church. which later on in life, thank God she did, because I've always known that there is a God, and I'm alive because there's a God, Um, by all rights, I should be pushing daisies up, not on this side of the earth. I should be, underground. Um, so the age of 21, I'm running the bars. I'm framing houses. I picked up a trade. I learned how to frame houses. Thought things were going really well. Um, However, they wasn't. I was driving to and from work on work privileges because of DUI. So obviously things weren't going too damn great. I'm catching DUIs. Um, but it'll be all right. I'm only 21. I'm allowed to live a little bit. That's what I used to always say. And things started getting worse. And then my best friend I had dies in a crotch rocket accident. Um, that really devastated me. Um, the toxicology came back. Everybody talked about his death, like, oh, he was intoxicated. Well, the toxicology came back that he wasn't drunk. There was actually a faulty recall item on his bike that nobody knew about. That basically, after a certain rate of speed, the brakes burn out on the bike and you can't stop. So one way or another, he passed away, and it really devastated me. Um, so I spiraled out of control even more. At this point, before his death, I wasn't doing a whole lot of meth. However, of course, I would do it to sober up, leaving bars, or I would do it so I could drink more. You know, um, After his death, I spiraled real bad out of control. I didn't care. I didn't care if I was drunk, if I was high. It didn't matter. You know. So I decided that you know this is before I knew about AA and rehabs. Um, I decided, well, it's just the people I'm hanging out with. It's got to be the people I'm around all the time. So if I just move somewhere else and make a new life for myself, all will be well. Well, I really truthfully believe that all I got to do is just make a geographical move and things will go away. So I did. I did just that. I linked up with some of my family members in Tennessee, and I moved into my cousin's house down there, and my adopted cousins. 'Cause mind you, I don't know any of my blood family, so these are adopted cousins that I was around somewhat growing up. Um, so I moved down there, and I didn't realize that I'd take me with me anywhere I go. Things down there got really bad. Uh, I met the mother. I've got one child. I've got a daughter who's 16. Um, October 14th, 2008, my daughter's born. I'm 22 years old. Just turned 22. The prior summer to that October. Um, and my daughter's born. I wasn't ready to be a father. I was. I was wild. I was crazy. I didn't want to. I had no intentions of committing with her mother. Um, she had other kids I was unaware of. Uh, and then I didn't want to be stepdaddy to her other kids. One way or another, I got scared and I ran from that relationship. I ended up dating a woman who was 11 years older than me. And I stayed in that relationship for the next 7 years of my life. Um, and I was in my daughter's life the first 7, 8 years of her life. And I mean, I was in and out. I was in and out of her life. I was in her life when I could put the bubble down, or I could put the alcohol down, or put the pill bottle down. Uh, that's another thing. But most of my life was revolved around my newfound love, I guess you would say. She had two boys that were one was 11 and one was 13 when we first met. So here I am, 22 years old, and I'm trying to raise two teenage boys basically, and got a daughter, myself that's an infant. Um, and the woman that I ended up dating, she partied at the beginning of our relationship. I met her actually at the bar. Um, we partied down. We smoked a lot of meth together, drank a lot. One thing led to another. Blase, blase. Uh, she later on in our relationship ended up letting the meth go, letting the alcohol go, but became highly addicted to opiate pills. Um, at this point in my life, I really thought that, as long as I wasn't smoking as much meth and drinking as much, that I was becoming a better person. But what I failed to realize is that I had done exactly what she had done, and I had switched addictions basically. At this point, too, I learned how to cook methamphetamines while I was in Tennessee. So my addictive mind tells me that, well, I don't have to smoke as much of this shit because I can cook a batch of dope and be high for 3 days. So then my mind was like, well, I can cook some dope, I can sell it, I can buy my opiate pain pills off the street, for what I sell, sell my meth to buy my pain pills, and then we can still pay our bills and everything will be fine. What I didn't realize is when I first took Vicodins was the first opiate pill I took. Um, as earlier in my story, there's a few drugs I've tried in my life, or even alcohol, that when I first used them, I puked. They don't agree with my system, and that's how it was with me with opiates. The first time I took a Vicodin, I'll never forget it. I took a 7.5, what they call Bumblebee, uh, Vicodin, and I chewed it up like my my ex girlfriend told me. She's like, "Oh, you want to kick in quicker? You chew it up." So I listened to her. I chewed it up, and oh man, in about 20 minutes, I could feel it. I could feel the warmness and the tingliness in my stomach, and what opiates make you do. My face got warm and hot, and I got sick. I ran to the toilet. I was like, "No, these ain't for me. I don't like them." Well, that didn't last for long. I became more curious. I'm like, because I see her getting up, taking her pain pills, and flying around the house, cleaning everything. And I'm like, I'm addicted to speed. My body likes speed, and I told her, I'm like, what do them opiates do for you? And she's like, well, they give me a jolt of energy, and I'm like, perfect. If I can just get try them again, and maybe they'll give me a jolt of energy this time, and I'll be okay. So uh, the next time I tried them, I took two more than 7.5 bumblebees, and I chewed them up, and this time I didn't get sick. Instead, I felt it hit my stomach, and I felt the tingling in my stomach, and my face got warm, and I was like, I'm home. I love this feeling, and it did. It gave me a jolt of energy. I got up, and I back in the floor, and I went outside and I cut the grass, and I'm like, yeah, I really like this shit. And then I took them and took them. I took, and before you knew it, my body was physically dependent on them. And when I didn't have them, look out. I was either puking physically, or I was so angry at the world you didn't want to be around me, cussing everybody and everything. And then more meth. When I wouldn't have the opiates, of course the meth would come back into my life full throttle. Uh, I did a lot of shit that I'm not proud of in that relationship. I basically destroyed myself, but I also destroyed the woman I was with, and her two boys. I like to think I didn't. I was unhealthy, so there's no way I was healthy for them. I'd like to say I was healthy for them, but I wasn't, because I wasn't healthy to myself. That's taken me years to realize that. You know, uh, One way or another, we ended up breaking up. I had ran out of meth, and I was on a bender, and I took all my appliances in my house. I decided, well, I need some more meth, so I took all my appliances in my house. I loaded them in the back of my S10, and I took them to the scrapyard. My wife was on a vacation. What it was is, there's twice in our relationship where we broke up for a couple of weeks. And when we break up for a couple of weeks, she would leave the house. go get a hotel room for a couple weeks, and then come home. And she done it once before, so I thought, well, she's gonna come home. We'll get back together. Well, no, not this time, because this time when she came home, I done took the water heater, I took the refrigerator, every appliance in the house, I took it to the scrapyard. When she came back through the door, I literally had tore the wood panels off the walls of my house and was stripping the copper wires out of my house to take to the scrapyard for more meth and more opiate pills. I'm not proud of this. It was terrible. That was one of my lowest of low times of my life. And she came home after that 2 weeks, all right. And she said at this time she said, "Look, we're through. You gotta go. You gotta get out of my life and get out of my house." She said, "Look what you've done to my home." And I totally, you know, most of the stuff that was in the house I had bought anyway, you know, but we bought together because we were a couple, you know. I can't just say, well, we didn't. It wasn't hers because I bought it. You know, we're a couple, so it was her shit too. Um, so I left. I did exactly what she told me to do. I'm not from Tennessee, so once again, I'm like, well, geographical move again. I'm going back to Ohio. You know, and it didn't dawn on me that I wasn't smart enough to grasp on to the fact then that, okay, dude, you done left Ohio, you've left Tennessee now you're going back to Ohio. What's the common denominator here? It's not the people, it's you. You're the one with the problem. I still thought I didn't have a problem and everybody else was the problem. Still in huge denial. So I come back here to Ohio. This is 2015. Yeah, 2015. I come back here to Ohio. Um, and my adopted mom's like, yeah, you can stay at my house. You can stay. You can stay at my house for a while to get on your feet. Well, this is never good when this woman tells me this because getting back on my feet never happens. It always it's always like I'm there for a week and get the fuck out of my house and then I'm homeless. It's happened a few times with me and her in my adulthood. Um, so I come back from Ohio or I come back from Tennessee. I'm sick as a dog, man. I have no opiates in my body whatsoever. I've got very little meth left. My mom's in the Air Force, so it's not like I can just sit in her basement and smoke meth, like which I ended up doing. And then like when a person's in the military and they have something like that in their home, if the military finds out about that, like they can lose their whole life, like, just like that over that shit. So I moved back. I move in with her, and I'm sick as a dog. I'll never forget it. And I'm trying to cold turkey everything. I'm trying to withdraw off the opiates. I'm trying to withdraw off the meth. I've got very little meth left. So I'm trying to space it out to where I won't be as sick. And I end up breaking this big ass line of meth up, and I do the whole line, and I start moving around a little bit, and I made it up into her kitchen, and then I made it into one of the bathrooms. She's got three bathrooms in her house, and I start opening up medicine cabinets. I'm like, man, she's got to have something in this house for opiate withdrawal. And well, I found it all right. I found cough syrup that was liquid hydrocodone. I'm like, yep, this will do the trick. So I grabbed. She had like two or three bottles of it, man. Like, and like some of it was one of the bottles was like a year expired and shit. I'm like, she don't need this. She'll never know. I was like, and it'll certainly make me feel better. So I took both bottles of the cough syrup and I opened them up and I shoved them and I drank them. My addictive mind told me that, well, this is what you can do to hide that. You can just fill them back full of water, shake them around a little bit. And she'll never know the difference. It's mom. Come on. And so I did. I put the water back in the cough syrup, and I shut the medicine cabinet, and about 2 weeks later, it took her about 2 weeks, and she caught on to it. And my stepdad, he he's addicted to opiate pills too, Percocets. However, he gets a script every month, so he thinks not addicted, but he knows he is addicted. Um, he prefers to crush them and snort them than take them. You know, that's his issue, not mine. I've never been one to point out somebody else's problems when I got my own. You know. However, he did tell my mom that I was smoking meth in the house, and that he caught me smoking meth in the house. He said, and honey, he said, I don't know what's wrong with the cough syrup, but one of the bottles was in his name, the other bottle was in her name. The cough syrup I drank, so I mean, he had a reason to be legitimately pissed that I drank his cough syrup. So my mom called me in her room after work one day and was like, "Son, I need to know an honest answer." I said, "Well, I don't lie to you. What is it, Mom?" She's like, "What's in these bottles?" And she holds my mouth dropped like, "How in the hell?" And she's like, "Did you do something to these?" I said, "Yeah, there's water in them." She said, "Why is there water in my cough medicine?" I said, "Because I drank it." She's like, "Why'd you do that?" I was like, "Because I was sick. I didn't feel good." She said, "Well, you better find your sick ass a rehab to go to, because you got about 2 weeks to get out of my house. You're going to a rehab somewhere." I'm like, "Going to a rehab?" I was like, "I'm not going to a rehab. I don't. By this time, I'm sick. I'm sick from the cough syrup I didn't drink. And that shit's all ran out of my system, and I don't got no meth in my system. And so I'm mentally going through it. So I start calling around different rehab places. That's when I found Salvation Army ARC here in Dayton, Ohio. Um, First time I went there, it's a 6 month program. I did not graduate. I ended up leaving early. I moved in with one of my stepsisters over in Drexel, and basically, I thought, well, at this point, I'm probably always going to smoke meth. So as long as I only stay up for 2 or 3 days at a time, and I limit the amounts of meth that I do, I'll be okay. I won't be that tweaker that nobody wants to be around. Um, that didn't work out for me. That didn't work out for me. I once again found myself smoking way more than I set myself limits on. Once again, instead of staying up 2 or 3 days, I was staying up for a week or 2 weeks at a time, doing stupid shit, driving into, taking naps at the wheel. I'd stay up for 10 days and think it's okay to go drive a vehicle and fall asleep. And I done ran over a turn sign on the highway, speed limit signs. I had a habit of running, hitting speed limit signs on the highway and shit. Um, I was just, I was treacherous, man. So then I was like, well, I just don't need to drive a vehicle ever again. That'll be fine, right? It's always driving that gets me in trouble while I'm doing meth, you know. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you here is that I'm trying my own remedies, every remedy I can think of. I'm running out of remedies. As time progresses. Now I know that the geographical moving around don't work. Me setting my own self limits don't work. Me going to a rehab and learning what a little bit about addiction and my body feeling better, shit like that. That didn't work. Uh, you know, so then I decided at this time, this is when my sister in my life was like, dude, you gotta get the fuck away from me. Like you're hitting shit in our car. You're fucking staying up for days, talking to the walls. You think the police are always kicking in the doors. You got extreme paranoia from meth. You know, you got to do something. Like you can't stay at my house no more. So I was like, all right, I'll go back to Salvation Army and I'll graduate this time. So I did exactly that. I graduated, stayed the 6 months, graduated, did phenomenal in the program. I got out, uh, stayed sober for a couple months, and then relapsed again. So I went back for a third time to Salvation Army, graduated, did good for a couple more months, longer than I did the first time I graduated. Relapsed again. So then I was like, all right, all right, all right. Salvation Army, ARC, I'm wearing it out. I'll try a different program. So I tried a different program, and the program I went through a program in Middletown actually. Um, called the Hope Spot, or Hope House, excuse me. Um, and I graduated there. It's really a homeless shelter. However, um, they do have an actual like program that if you graduate, they will actually hook you up with a place to live. So I was that's perfect, right up my alley. I'll graduate their little homeless shelter program, and which requires you to stay sober the whole time. So I had no problem staying sober for 3 months. I did it Salvation Army twice for 6 months. So that was I flew through that. Uh, I didn't like the lady that did the drug counseling classes in there from Access. Me and her bumped heads a lot. Didn't see eye to eye, so I got myself in some trouble there because of my mouth. Um, they ended up giving me an apartment in Middletown. I lived there for a while. Got high. Had a good job at the factory in Middletown. First time I ever worked in a factory outside of construction. Uh, Worked there for a while. Got high. Lost my job there. Uh, so then that's when I found Christopher House in Xenia, Ohio. Um, and I made a conscious decision to leave my apartment in Middletown, which I was getting ready to lose it anyway. In fact, the landlord actually gave me $200 back on my rent the very last month I was there and asked me to move out. He said, "Take this money right here. I want you to move out of my apartment within 24 hours." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure thing." Like, I've never had a landlord give me rent money back to move out. Like, he must really not like me, you know. But there was a lot of bullshit going on in the apartment complex, and I was getting blamed for a whole lot of shit that I take part in the shit I was doing, but there was more shit going on in the apartment complex than what I was doing, you know. So I did exactly that. I packed up. I left most of it. I packed up what I could in the back of one of my buddy's truck, and up here to Xenia I came. Went to Christopher House. Uh, Only to find out there's a waiting list for Christopher House, so I had to go to the homeless shelter in Xenia called Bridges of Hope. Stayed there for a little while until I could get into Christopher House, and then I was briefly there. I was there like 10 days. And I'm like, nope, this ain't for me. I'm leaving. And then the guy that runs it, Nate Craigo, he said something very profound to me that still to this day sticks out in my mind. And he's like, well, how you doing today? I was like, I'm doing great. I had all my bags packed and I walked him all to the front desk and he was behind the desk. He just come in for work, for a shift. And he said, where are you going with all the bags? I said, well, I'm leaving. Whatever I got assigned, I'm getting the fuck out of here, dude. Like, I'm not staying here. And he looked at me and what profound that he said to me was, and it was very simple. He just said, squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? You know, and it's always stuck out in my mind. I'll tell you in just a minute where it all started making sense for what he said to me. So I uh, I left rehab that day, and one of my cousins was living not too far from there, and I immediately got high, man. And it kept me out for a good 6 to 9. It was either 6 or 9 months. I came back to Christopher House for a second time. I graduated. And not only did I graduate, but I went into their sober living after graduation. Lived at what they call the Liberty House for 4 months, and then went into what they call their extended sober living. This is where I actually got a sponsor. I worked the 12 steps of AA and was living in step 10, 11, and 12. I had two other guys, two other sponsees that I was working on steps with too. Reading the book with them, and eventually I ended up taking them through the steps. Things are going great. This is late early 2018. I hit my year mark at early 2018. I'm a year clean. Never in my life have I been one solid calendar year clean, man. And I was really excited about it. I was giving my story like I am now, only a different version for AA. I've given my story 3 times in my life for AA. AA saved my life, um, but ultimately my higher power saved my life. Because that's what the program's really supposed to do, is introduce me to a higher power that can restore me back to sanity. Um, anyway, so I shared my story. I was everything that the elder everything that the old timers in AA told me to do. I was doing. Um, but I really I had a relationship with God, but um, I wasn't pursuing it as much as I should have been. I should have devoted time out of my day where that was me and God time. Um, I realize that now. I didn't back then. I got busy. Life gets busy in recovery too. And then life also shows up in recovery. 2019 was around the corner. I have almost 2 years clean, man, and I got the worst phone call of my whole life that my mother was dead. My mother had passed away, and this is the mother that my adopted father had remarried. That's the mother that I choose to claim as my mother. My adopted mother, not so much. Um, and that's just for a number of reasons. But that's my mom. That's the mom that when I needed a mother or I needed to talk to a mother that would treat me like a son, it was her. My dad told me that he had gotten up uh, from bed and my mom was in the bathroom and had passed away in the bathroom floor. This really devastated me. I began to be a workaholic. I clinged to my work. I didn't want to be. What it was is I was in fear of being alone. I was in fear of being in my apartment by myself. And so I would bury myself at work all the time at work, and then the work kind of wore off. That didn't seem like that was really helping me. So then I met a girl in the program. I'm like, sweet, they told me wait a year before I get in a serious relationship. I got almost 2 years clean. I can have a serious relationship now. I actually listened to them. And so I got with this girl and I fell way quicker for her than I should have. And I thought she was really the one, man. And, she showed up one day at my house with a DNA kit and then she was like, "Here, go find your father." And then, oh yeah, by the way, we're not dating no more. So that really rocked my world. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna show her. I was like, I'm not gonna let that woman break my heart like that. So I started girl hopping in the rooms. Uh, Instead of having one girlfriend, I ended up having 4 or 5 random girls that I was sleeping with on different nights of the week. And of course people that were in my sober support network were starting to see some problems, in my program and making me aware of my behaviors. One of them even went as far as to tell me, like, dude, like you've relapsed in your mind. You just ain't put dope in you yet. Like all your behaviors are that of an addict. You're just not using yet. You know. And I was like, oh man, I can pass a year and go to hell. I don't need to listen to you. Blah 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 blah. And here I am, the know it all. Here I am, the defiant guy. And then sure enough, so about 6 or 7 months went on after my mama died, and then I got the phone call that my father, my adopted father had deceased too. So it was like death, death back to back death. I was overwhelmed, man, and I said, "Fuck it, I'm getting high." I had managed to, at this point, I had managed to calculate up almost 3 years of continuous sobriety, man, and threw it all down the drain, for a couple hits of meth that kept me out there for. After that relapse, I stayed out a solid year. Uh, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that it happened, because I was, man. People would be like, "Man, you need somebody to call an AA that knows the program, or you need to call this guy." And I would always tell people like, "Listen, man, I know as much as anybody else. I don't know anything more than nobody else. you know. Uh, and I have to remind myself that all the time, man. That whether a person has a day clean or a person has 50 years clean, I can learn something from both of them. You know, and to me, that's part of remaining humble. Is remaining teachable. It's also part to me. It's also part of having an open mind. There's spiritual principles that you know addiction in itself. What I've learned through my experience with it, it's a spiritual malady. So a spiritual malady would mean a spiritual sickness. So I mean, it only makes sense in my mind that if you have a spiritual sickness, you've got to fight it spiritually. So fighting it spiritually, um, people might have their different forms of what a higher power looks like and is. As far as mine, what I have is, I talk very openly about it. I'm proud of who I claim as my higher power. Which would be my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Um, Others might have something different of what theirs is looks like. As for me and mine, and I know that Jesus died on the cross for me and my sins, and that all I've got to do is ask for forgiveness and believe, and I'm forgiven. You know, um, so when I come back from this year long relapse, after going through some heavy deaths and dealing with that, I decided to come over here to Woodhaven for the first time, and I wasn't sure really if I wanted to stay clean. I wasn't sure really what I wanted to do that time when I was in Woodhaven. I just know that I I was there not because I hated drugs. I was there because I loved drugs, and I hated the consequences that were seeming to come with me using. Before I went to Woodhaven, I forgot to throw something in that was real serious too. Before I went to Woodhaven that time, uh, I had developed kidney failure. I went into kidney failure from extensive methamphetamine use, and was actually picked up at the intersection of Wayne and Wyoming here in the east side of Dayton. If you know anything about that intersection, it's very busy all night and day long. Um, I the ambulance peeled me up with a 108-degree fever, and my kidneys were in complete failure. Uh, this was due to heavy methamphetamine use. They got me to Miami Valley Hospital. They induced a coma for 5 days because they didn't know they didn't know what my brain was going to turn out like when I woke up. Um, and I'll never forget it. I've never in my life had a catheter. I woke up, I freaked out. I had a catheter running out of me. First thing I wanted to do was get up and get out of the bed and go pee. And the nurse is like, "No, you can't get out of bed. Just pee right there." And I'm like, "I don't pee the bed. I'm a grown dude." And he's like, "Just pee." I went to throw the blanket off me and I freaked out. I'm like, "What the hell is this?" Catheter running out. And he's like, "Look, man, you were real sick when you got here." And then, he starts reading off my medical chart on the computer. And he's reading everything, from the paramedic report. And I'm like, "Dude, listen, if you're trying to scare me sober, like this ain't gonna work, my guy. Like I've been to rehab numerous times. Like you're not gonna scare me with what you're saying. That probably ain't on that computer screen." And he's like, "No, I promise you. That's what this, paramedics, they log everything in the computer." And I'm like, "Dude, let me read it then." So he wheeled the card over here and put it right in front of my face, and I read my own paramedic report, and it was, man, it said all that, and I was like, "Oh my God." And then he showed me this bed that they put me in that had ice and water. They call it they nicknamed it in the hospital the Superman tank because it's got circulating ice and water that they had to put me in for quite a while because they didn't want my body to cool off too fast, for whatever, I'm not a neurologist. I don't know, but I do know that also too. I knew I was in serious condition because the helicopter was right outside my bedroom with the hospital room. And if you know anything about a hospital, If the helicopter's on the same floor where your hospital room is, you're in critical condition. Like you're in the no joke floor, you know. Um, so I eventually got bumped down from critical condition down to ICU, and then I actually left against doctors' advice. I had to sign the paperwork that if I died, I couldn't sue the hospital. I had enough of it. I was walking and talking fine. I was going up and down the hallways and sneaking out. I got caught sneaking outside, smoking cigarettes, being the defiant little asshole that I am, breaking every rule in the hospital that there is. You know, and they were kind of tired of me, and I was ready to go. And I told the nurse, come in here, get the. I still at this point had two pick lines, running out this arm, running out that arm. I'm like, hey, come get these pick lines out of me, blah 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 blah. And that never seemed to happen. So I took it upon myself to take pick lines out myself. So, if you know anything about that, when you take a pick line out, if you don't do it, I didn't know what I was doing. When you take them out, they bleed quite a bit. So, I take one out and take the other out, and I got blood going this way and blood going that way. It looked like an exorcism, in the hospital room. Uh, and they came in, they were like, oh my God, what'd you do? I'm like, look, just put a bandage on it. Whatever we got to do, I'm getting out of here. I'm going home. It really what it was is my disease was talking to me too. My disease was saying, "Get the hell out of here! Get the hell out of here!" You need to go home and smoke a bubble. You know, and I did exactly that. I signed the paperwork. I left the hospital. I went home. I got high that night. You know, and then I go to Woodhaven for the first time. Like I said, graduate their program. Their program's a 90-day program. I graduated, and I go to a sober living over here on the north side, over off Hunter Avenue, that they call the Outcast Motorcycle Club. Great guys, great program. I can't say nothing bad about anybody over there. I can say bad about the behavior that I had there. I began to be uh, worried. I worry a lot. I do a lot of worrying. Um, and I had to go to this IOP place called Freedom Recovery. And I was scared every day. I wasn't going to make it to recovery. I wasn't going to make it to my recovery meeting, and then my sober living would be in jeopardy. And I have to work a job because at this point I'm renting a room from Outcast. I got my own room. So I'm paying rent there. I'm paying 350 a month for the rent and yada yada yada. So I'm freaking out about well, if I don't go to Freedom Recovery, then I can get kicked out. If I don't go to work, to make the money to pay my rent, I get kicked out. So I'm constantly worried about. I'm just completely all the way around worried about shit, and shit that wasn't even. I was making every freedom for recovery meeting, and I was making work every day. So I was absolutely freaking out for no reason. And what it was is I wasn't doing anything to help myself while I was in there. Yeah, I was going to work paying my bills and I was going to freedom recovery, but I didn't have a sponsor. I wasn't attempting to work steps. I wasn't doing anything spiritually, to try to combat this disease except doing what I was told to do by my recovery housing. That for me is not enough. Just doing the bare minimums is not enough. Because at the end of the day, you know, I can still follow recovery housing's rules, but am I spiritually working on myself? Am I spiritually taking a look at what really is the problem here? You know, am I trying to form a relationship with a spiritual higher power that's going to save my life? Or am I just doing what I'm told to do wherever I go in life? And see, I'm not too terrible at following directions anywhere I go in life. And it's not that I'm not following the right directions, because most of the time I am. But once again, just following directions is not working on me. And that's just for me. You know, so at Outcast, I was continuously worrying about shit that wasn't happening, wasn't going to happen. You know, and I let it eat me up, man. I did. I let it eat me up, and then I had a bad. All it took was a bad day at work, a rain day at work, and the next thing you know, I got a bubble hanging out of my mouth, and you know, one of my buddies I'm in freedom recovery with is calling my phone to make sure I got a ride to go to IOP, and I'm high as a kite, you know, and I'm so high I can't even talk, so I didn't answer the phone to him, and then I didn't text him back, and then he actually went out by where I used to work and literally about chased me down in his car down the bike path, trying to get me get in his car. And I'm like, dude, I can't do that to you. I don't want to risk your recovery because I'm high. You know. He's like, man, just get in my car. We'll talk about it. Blah blah blah. So I ended up telling myself a freedom recovery. The group went on. It's a 3 hour group. We had about a half an hour, 45 minutes left, and I finally said, all right, all right, all right. I'm tired of you guys. I'm tired of 24 eyeballs in this damn group staring at me because you guys know I'm high. I said, so I'm just going to go out and tell you flat out right now, I got high on meth. And everybody in the room was like, dude, we're not even looking at you. Like, you are extremely paranoid. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, come on, guys. Yeah, you guys all knew I was high. And they're all like, no, dude, we really didn't know you were high until you just told us. You know, so, yeah, you know, I was like, I told my friend, I'm like, I can't go back to that sober living high like this. Like I'll put 30 something other guys that live in that sober living in danger, you know. So I called the guy that I called Jim Marshall, the guy that runs it, and I'm like, look, man, uh, I hope you don't hate me for this, but I got high today, and you know, of course, I'm not gonna ask to go in your house. I'm not gonna go in your house, but you know, what do I do? Because I do need my stuff, you know. And he's like, well, come by the house, and I'll have the boys pack you up, and he's like, "Man, why'd you do that?" And I said, I at this point, I had no clue, you know. Well, that smoking meth that one time that one day kept me out for 2 more years, man. Of which I had another trip to Miami Valley Hospital where my kidney shut down again. This time around, man, you can forget me holding a job down. You can forget me having a steady place to live. I can just about I can describe to you what I was going through and what it felt like, but unless you really see me out there, you wouldn't. I don't think I could really describe how terrible it was. Um, you're talking living outside. For them 2 solid years, I lived outside, and I'm not talking just in summertime. I'm talking in wintertime too. You know, houses that are bandos that don't have heat or anything in them, no utilities. You know, they really suck to stay in the wintertime when it's snowing and it's icy out. Um, and I'm damn good at surviving. That seems to be an issue that I've got too. Is I'm very good at surviving through things that most other people would throw their hands up and say I surrender. You know, not me. I like to see how long I can push things until pretty much I'm dead. You know, and then still don't want to surrender. You know, but I know that if I don't, I'm gonna die. You know, so being trespassed about everywhere in a town that you go. You know, being told you're not welcome here. You know that's very hurtful shit. Having to constantly know which restaurants and which gas stations throw away food on certain nights, and you know that's how I lived, man, for 2 years. You know, and then what little bit of cash that I did get, you know, I would use that to buy whatever amount of meth I could that day. Besides stealing things here or there, to get by. I was very good at and I wouldn't beg for things, man. Uh, I would pray and I'd tell God, look, God, I know meth ain't bad. I know meth ain't no good for me. I know you don't want me doing meth, but I don't got no money. I need some money. Will you please bless me with some money somehow today? And then before you know it, wait an hour or two, and wherever I was at, man, somebody would come up and hand me a 20 or, yeah, it was amazing. I always knew to pray, man, and prayer worked. And so, uh, I would be out there. high, and I know this is wrong for me to say, and it's sinning big time, but I would be trying to teach people the Bible and be high as hell on meth, while they're helping me out financially with things, and they would ask me like, "Are you high?" And I never lied to them. I'd say, "Yeah, I'm high. I wouldn't be out here if I wasn't high." You know. So I thought, well, I'm not lying to nobody. I'm being as brutally honest as I can be. So like, who am I really hurting here? I can't be hurting them if I'm being truthful to them. If they ask me, am I getting high? I tell them yes. If they ask me, am I going to buy dope with it? I tell them yes. So who am I really hurting here? I'm only hurting myself. And as long as I'm only hurting myself, then that's okay. If I want to hurt me, then my body's my temple. I should be able to. But that's really not how it is. I'm really hurting God by hurting my body. And it's taken me years to get to that acceptance in that area of my life. Um, the past 2 years of my life coming to Woodhaven, uh, January 23rd of this year, was absolute a nightmare. And when I mean a nightmare, I mean I still have bad dreams about it. I'm talking. I went into Woodhaven. I had frostbite on my feet. I limped with a real bad limp. My left foot was the bottom of it was almost completely frostbite. Uh, and in pain, in constant pain, man, where the frostbite would fall off and new skin was growing, and I'm constantly walking on it to go to our groups and things, and it would crack and it would fester and it would bleed, and it just I don't never ever want to relive that physical pain. Mind you, like I said, this past summer, um, I was laid up at Miami Valley again for 2 weeks with complete kidney failure. That's when the doctors told me in Miami Valley, they were like, look, my guy, like your kidneys look like you're about 80 years old. You're only in your 30s. I'm 36 years old. Um, they basically told me like, dude, you've got to get off drugs or you're going to be on a dialysis machine at a very early age in your life, and then if you don't go to that, like you're going to die. The toxins will back up in your body and that's it. You're dead. Um, and I thought, well, God will heal me. God will heal me, and that to me was being sinful to God too, in many different ways, man. So things got just totally. I was living in my buddy and me purchased a full size school bus and we turned it into an apartment. He was getting evicted out of his house. He had gotten a divorce from his wife. His kids moved out. So he's like, dude, we're gonna buy this full size bus. We're gonna turn it into an apartment, and we never have to pay rent again. We can go anywhere we want to, just put gas in the tank. I'm like, yeah, sweet, awesome idea. So we stripped out all the seats out of this bus, and we put a bed in the back of it. Bolted it down to where we're going down the highway. The bed don't bounce around the place. And then we realized that it took a fortune to start the engine up and have the heat just running in the bus. It costs a small fortune to keep the fucker warm in the wintertime. If you know anything about metal in the wintertime, a stripped out bus with no seats in it, it's just nothing but metal. And like it gets very, very cold. Things that are metal get colder than things that aren't. So uh, we learned that out real fast. I filled the thing up on a Monday, and by Thursday morning, and we hadn't moved an inch, and that was just kicking it on, to keep us warm from freezing. We had ran through all the gas in the thing, and it was like cost almost $200 to fill up. I was like, dude, we can't afford this thing. Are you crazy? So we we put a wood burning stove in it, uh, and we bolted it down to the rear fender wells, and ran the flute pipe, the back of it, ran it through the top window of the bus, and realized that had the wrong. It wasn't high enough for the draft, so instead of that, that's how I actually got frostbite on my feet was from that thing. It basically instead of taking the smoke out of it and pushing the heat in, it was doing the exact opposite. It was blowing the smoke in and pushing the heat out because the pipe wasn't it wasn't elevated enough to for circulation purposes. Uh, so, uh, I thought it was getting warmer in the bus one night, and I fell asleep with my good old steel toe boots on. And I woke up the next morning and my feet hurt so bad, man. I could have chopped them off. I really could. I wish I would have chopped them off. That's how bad they hurt. Um, so we redid the pipe and got a cutoff wheel, stood on top of the bus, and we cut a square out and took the flute pipe instead of going out the top window. We ran it out the roof of it and put the flute cap on, you know, and man, we threw some logs in that thing, and for the first time in that bus, we got warm, and I was like, oh, this is perfect, this is awesome, and then it snowed. And then it came a good snow, and the flute pipe was only about that high, out the top of the bus. Well, that night it decided to snow, good 6, 7 inches, and it buried the flute pipe. So now the snow's melting and it's running down the flute pipe and it's running into the snow. I got this pain in my foot from the frostbite. I'm sick from not having drugs and dope, and I'm terrible. I'm restless. I'm irritable. I'm discontent. I'm spiritually bankrupt again. I'm talking to God. I think God's there, and he is, but mentally, I'm losing it mentally. You know, so I call Woodhaven again on the 23rd of January, and I'm like, look, I gotta get in there, or I'm gonna die, flat out. Either I'm gonna physically die, you know, or somebody's gonna find me frozen out here in the snow. Uh, so man, I called Woodhaven and here they came. They came, picked me up, saved my life again. You know. And while I was at Woodhaven this time, I was like, look, man, what haven't you done all the times you've gone to recovery? I've always kind of heard about Good Shepherd, but I've always heard too, like they're strict, they got a lot of rules, you know, and I never wanted to have a sober living where they're strict. They've got rules, things like that. I wanted the easier route. I wanted to go to sober living that has least rules. I'll just pay the monthly rent, and not have, you know, uh, work and not have accountability and all the things that Good Shepherd does. So this time around, sitting in rehab, I was like, look, man, you keep going to sober livings where you're supposed to have your own rules for your life right away, and you keep failing. So obviously, you've got to do something else different this program, and probably go to sober living they're where they've got accountability, they've got structure, it's more hands on as far as the program, and certainly a faith based ministry instead of just a sober living. So that's when yeah, I had to tell my addict mind, hey, yo, shut up. You want the easier, softer route, and you keep getting the same damn thing, you know. So that's when I was told about Good Shepherd, and then I finally I picked the phone up and I called Sean Trapp. He's like, hey, look, fill the application out, and we'll see what we can do, And I did what he told me to do, and somebody else that is a failure of a Good Shepherd was like, man, look, just stay on and stay on the guy, and he's a good dude. He'll let you in there, And I'm like, all right. So I listened, and I called every day, and it seemed like I was bugging the guy, but man, I wanted to get in here because I need something different in my life, and Good Shepherd certainly is something different in my life. I truthfully believe that the things that I've been given, uh, you know, uh, just in the short time I've been a Good Shepherd, I've needed for a long time in my life. I've needed the brotherhood. I've needed the accountability. I've needed the structure. I've needed people to tell me that I'm doing a good job in life, man, and that I do count and I do matter. That's all things that nowhere. Looking back at my life, nowhere really in my life have I had too many people tell me I'm doing a good job in my life, or that I'm loved, or I'm worthy, or any of the any of the stuff that I've been receiving, just in the couple weeks I've been a good shepherd. Um, Hats off to him, man. Hats off to Good Shepherd. But there again too, it's also up to me to seek a personal relationship with my Lord and Savior, which is what I know I'll never be perfect, but I want to be better than I was the day before. But yeah, that's my life, man.